polls, and that's in thanks part to scenes like this. Senior citizens throwing their support behind the Democrat rather than the Republican. Of course, that is likely making President Trump nervous, and with good reason. Look at these numbers. A recent CNN poll conducted by SSRS finds that 60% of likely voters over the age of 65 plan to choose Mr. Biden. Nora Super is the Senior Director of the Milken Institute Center for the Future of Aging and joins me now from Washington. She's also the Executive Director of the Milken Institute Alliance to Improve Dementia Care. Well, thanks for joining us. You study the politics of aging. So my question is, how will pensioners and seniors impact this election?
Well, older voters have always had a significant impact on U.S. elections. They're reliable voters. They turn up for the polls. In 2016, 71% of voters over age 65 turned out to vote.
And who did they vote for? Because from what I understand, the latest polls are showing that Donald Trump has lost a significant number of these older Americans.
That's right. We're seeing trends towards Vice President Biden now pretty significantly in poll after poll. In the past, it's been since Al Gore that a Democrat has won the majority of voters over age 65 in the U.S. So nearly 20 years since older voters have gone for the Democratic nominee. So this is a very significant shift that we're seeing in this election.
And why? Why are they shifting?
Well, I think the number one reason is COVID. Even prior to COVID, we saw some changing of folks as they were looking at Donald Trump. What we have here is the baby boomers that are turning 65, 10,000 of them every day in the U.S. So it's a huge number of people, 38 million that are what we call the leading edge of the baby boom, and another 38 million that are at the trail edge, as I am at age 56. And we're not the same as older voters of yesteryear. Really, the older baby boomers came of age during Vietnam, during the women's rights movement, civil rights. They've really been voters who've tried to test autonomy. Watergate happened then. And now with younger boomers like myself, the issues that we care about have stayed the same, but changed a little bit with COVID for sure. Health has always been a major issue that older voters look to. And since people over 65 are at higher risk of getting infected from COVID, in fact, we see that people that are over 65 have 5 times higher risk of getting infected from COVID, and 20% of them have died. And these numbers just increase dramatically the older you get. I think part of what's happening in the election is that people are looking at Donald Trump and don't see a real plan of how to move out of the pandemic. They've seen people that they know die or people get infected, and it's really causing quite a bit of anxiety among older voters.
And is this split along racial lines? Is it just white older voters that seem to be peeling away from the president?
Well, I mean, Black Americans didn't vote for Donald Trump in the last election, although they didn't turn out for Hillary Clinton either. So the expectations is that we'll see minority populations, since President Trump really has pitted, unfortunately, some races against each other in the U.S. I think people are predicting that we'll see a much bigger turnout around minority Americans. And just like populations all across the age span, our older population has become more diverse over time as well. I think that we'll see these voters turn out more because they feel, and especially those in minority populations that have a higher risk of contracting COVID and have had disparities and more likely to see death, of really wanting to turn out and vote for a new president.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how that energizes them. So my next question is, where will this impact be felt? And so could pensioners essentially tilt this election, flip this election, particularly if we think about it, Florida is such a key state?
Absolutely. I mean, the 3 biggest states that have, of course, the largest older population are California, Texas, and Florida. Texas is in play. Nobody expected this. But Florida, we're certainly seeing polls trending that voters that went for Donald Trump are now saying that they'll vote for Joe Biden. This would be really significant. All it would take really for Joe Biden is to win Florida would be a significant gain on election night. Also in some of the so-called Rust Belt states where President Trump won big, we have much older populations there that have been seeing also increased risk for COVID. So states like Maine, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, they're all continuing to see high infection rates. And then with winter coming on board and a typical flu season, unfortunately, the projections are it's just going to get worse before the election.
And that's very much on the minds of voters as they make this decision on who to vote for. Great to speak to you. It's fascinating. It's going to be very interesting to see how this is broken down in a few weeks' time after the votes are counted. Nora Super, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Thank you.